Hi, folks. Welcome. Thank you very much, Kadir, for that lovely intro, and I think for all of you guys for joining us, here today, sacrificing, I guess, what will be a bit more sleep to just hear me ramble on and chat and talk about innovation. But very grateful, and I think like what Kadir said, like when Creative Mornings reached out to us and they were saying like, this is innovation that we want to talk about the theme. I was like, I'm not a developer. What am I going to talk about? And so I had to dig deep and like how could I spin it so that it would be maybe hopefully a relevant or at least an inspiring conversation that we could have and a sharing that I could have here with you guys. And I think I went to this phrase, the theme of I think my innovative look is about innovation in constraint, and I think it's a phrase I've heard a lot in my career. It's not possible, and it's something that I used to kind of believe in, and I used to hear it in my head. And what changed was I'm not sure whether you watched this movie Interstellar. I'm a big space kind of nut and movies and all that. So I watched this film Interstellar and by Christopher Nolan, and there was this particular scene where the heroes were trying to dock with an out of control space station, and it was spinning wildly and all that. And the robot tells the heroes like, it's not possible. We cannot dock on that space station. And then Matthew McConaughey in his cool boss voice, he goes in and it's not possible, but it's necessary. And that that stuck in my head. It stuck in my head, and I was like, yeah, I know there are a lot of things that are not possible, but when it becomes necessary, I think that's where we get innovative. That's where we get creative. And I think that's the crux of my convo. So, not to dwell too long on this because Kadir did a great job. Yes, I'm a director, creative producer based in Singapore. I run two labels, Monochromatic Pictures, a drama label, and Protagonist by M, a factual label. And I also sit on the board of the Association of Independent Producers as president of that association. I work across drama, documentary, new formats, yes. And this year, I kept myself busy with not only a drama that was shot in New Zealand, two documentaries that cross borders and use experimental formats, but also a huge indie initiative, SG Story, a campaign that we ran as an association to empower and to reignite our independent creative scene. So this is some of the crazy stuff that I've done over the years, over my 20-odd years as a director, as a producer, worked with my team. And in this chaos, we worked across different budgets, different platforms, different genres. And I think it's not possible has come in so many different flavors and versions here. And what we had to do was like to look at that, it's not possible, yes, but it was necessary for us at different junctures. Like, how could we do this? How could we break it down? And how could we change it? And I think for me, that's where, innovation means actually how do we change, our behavior under pressure? Just not using the new tools, but how do we change our mindset? How do we change our behavior to things and relook at things in a different manner that it could make the impossible possible. So the way I look at it is also three pillars I think that I look at flipping when I think about how do we make it possible or how do we make it necessary. One is formats. When I look at formats, I tell my team like, how do we get innovative around formats? How can we flip it? Like if you're shooting on a particular type of camera or a particular type of story, can we flip the genre? Can we flip the duration of it? From 16:9, can we go to vertical videos? What does that mean? The processes also, how do we flip the processes? How do we actually make the thing? The processes, I think, come from technology, embracing technology in a lot of different ways, not just our camera tools, but also other automation tools that we can bring along the way, AI, where does it sit? How can we make it fresh, make it different? And something that's also important to me is the people and the ecosystem. How do we innovate around that? Who gets to play in our new show, our new story that we want to tell? It could not only is about the technical crew, but also who benefits from it. Is it going to be me? Is it going to be my company? Or is it going to be a greater and bigger audiences? So I'm going to be zooming in on three types of innovation that perhaps hit me with the projects that we had this year. The first being innovation that was pretty much forced upon, like it was innovation that found itself to our shop because I wanted to tell this story. Korban 2 is a story about a female Muslim chef who is based in New Zealand, about to marry her Maori fiance, and uh, the fish out of water story that she gets into there, like how do you blend cultures, how do you actually navigate career, your dream, your ambitions in a new place and an alien land. And it was a story that we really wanted to tell. It's a sequel to something that we did during the pandemic, and in wanting to tell it, we realized that we were talking to networks and we were given limits on budgets and timelines, on what we could do, because, we all know where budgets and timelines are. I think if you're anybody in the creative field, yeah, budgets are never enough now, they're shrinking, and timelines are just getting shorter. So for us, it was, how are we gonna innovate upon that? We had a story to tell. We were going to do a series entirely in New Zealand on a local TV drama budget. How were we going to do that? And we had also very different cultures that we had to navigate. We were bringing Singapore teams, and it was not only just a racial culture mix, because it was a Muslim story at its core, and we also had Maori cast and individuals and themes in it. How are we going to bridge not only a cultural mix on that front, but also work culture, because we had Singapore crew and New Zealand crew working together. How were we going to bridge that? And we had to navigate these hurdles, and what we decided to do was to turn these hurdles into drivers, into our engines. Actually, very early on we knew we had to relook and innovate around the process of how we were going to tell the show, because we didn't want to be in the red. We had a budget that we had to work with, and we had to figure out how we were going to do this, and the only way was to be very transparent with all our partners, all our heads of department, all our talent. And it was not about how we were going to shoot a scene. It was actually why we wanted to shoot that, and that investment and that approach that we took from the get-go was what enabled us to film a limited series entirely in New Zealand, with international cast, and still not compromise on the production quality that we wanted to, and deliver something that was strong. And even though we just set out to tell that story because it was something that the team felt we really wanted to do, we wanted to tell these characters' story, when it started to get critical acclaim and place itself in a lot of awards, that recognition from your peers and other individuals really validated that innovative risk that we had to take for Korban 2. The other type of innovation, I think, was the one that was chosen. And we have two projects here, Metropolis and Through Time. Metropolis, we decided to mix it up. It was a architectural documentary, but we mixed it with journey storytelling and the use of technology to kind of visualize the design by this architect. So it is an LA, Singapore-based documentary where we follow LA architect Jenny in her exploration in Singapore. And it was to answer, I think, not only just an architecture question, but a design philosophy as well as a community question. She came to Singapore to figure out how to design community spaces, third places. And it's very much like that whole documentary was experiencing Creative Mornings, actually, not on a daily basis when we were filming it, because it was reaching out to all the micro communities around Singapore and figuring out how do we design a space where people could congregate, could gather, could converse. And we knew we didn't have the budget or the time to design a full-fledged space. So what we did was we leaned into augmented reality. We decided to have her design live as an augmented reality object, right? Like where people could interact with, they could see it beyond the show, and they could even give their feedback and things like that. So the innovation was, how could we use technology to perhaps prototype and design something small that could then be made bigger, or before you even spend large, bigger, serious money. That's how we did that. With Through Time, it's a history documentary that we wanted to look at how could we use tools that were available to us, in a maybe responsible way to retell old stories. So we leaned into we leaned into Gen AI. We use generated AI to create scenes to tell the stories of these lost memories and missing places in Singapore. We also use Unreal Engine to kind of recreate spaces. So technology was at the heart of it, like we really brought it in so that we could enable us to tell stories in a different way for today's audiences. So not shying away from just sticking with the traditional sense of storytelling, but a bigger sense. Now, for me, I think what was really important, and I think I'm starting to care more and more about actually is this third kind of innovation, which is innovating with the collective, and I think for us at iPro, this was a very big thing that we wanted to do this year. It was a problem that we felt that our industry was facing in the past few years, with where budget constraints and commissioning windows for programs were very slow. So we realized not only companies but freelancers in the creative sector were all kind of floundering. We were all in this kind of a cloud that we needed to get out of. And as an association, we decided, how could we fix this? How could we change that up? And SG Stories is the way that we came about doing that. It was where innovation became a collective. So under 8 months, we went out to get 100 proposals, 100 concept proposals, filtered through them, awarded 30 titles, created 160 videos, and through that initiative, we created also 450 jobs, in the creative industry for the indie filmmakers, storytellers, and things like that. And well, that number might have to change, but it was 1.3 million views that it garnered over this campaign of short stories and micro dramas that we put out. And it was a really wonderful run. And it showed actually the power of what you could do when you activated the ground. That innovation, I think, was something that was more cultural. We used different tools, and along the way, we used AI, chatbots, to streamline the process because we had a very small, nimble team. In fact, yeah, my marketing manager is on that project, and one of the team leads also is here. With just 5 of us running an entire campaign of this scope on a national level, I think we really had to adopt technology in different processes. Like I mentioned, AI chatbots, so that I think conversations and communications with people were frequent and consistent. We use automation tools to streamline judging processes. How do you look at 100 concept proposals and judge them, score them, and find the best? We put that all into the heart and bones of this whole campaign and this whole engine to create it. So for me, I think SG Stories really embodied, I think, what we can do if we innovate as a collective. Like when we have this ground activation, we are able to do these different things, that I think we often say like it's impossible. You won't be able to do that. But collectively, across the years, as well as like this year leading up, it really showed me and it told me like, when something feels like it's impossible, but if we feel it's necessary for us, whether it's necessary for our craft, for our community, or maybe for our sanity, we should find a way to make it happen, and I want to conclude my, conversation and my sharing actually with the idea of, if I could get you guys to head out, today and think about what is that small necessary impossible that you could put into your project, into your lives today, and change it and flip it around, that would be immensely useful, And I think that seeing things differently is something that Singapore really needs, because we often are faced with that phrase like it's not possible to do it in Singapore, you can't do this for these reasons. But I truly believe through these projects and perhaps my career, like there is a way. And I think there's a shift in the ground, in the community, in the creative community to let's come together, let's, work together, embrace this, let's use the tools that we have at hand, be it technology, be it, people, humans actually as the technology, and having conversations and having these important moments and coming together. These are the things I think that's where we find our true creative, innovative spark, and this exchanging of ideas. It's not just about making that cool new app or having that tool, and that's where it's about. I think for me, it's a longer model. It's a more sustainable model that we want to create here in Singapore to kind of shift that mindset about, yeah, maybe these things are possible, or if they are not, at least they are necessary for our ecosystem. So if you want to find us, we live on these places online. SG Story is a website where you can learn more about our producers who have kind of created these micro dramas, 150 micro dramas. iPro is the association if you want to reach out for producers who are really pushing the envelope like myself. I think we are all producers who have learned how to innovate and work around constraint to deliver something that is of international and global value. And if you want to reach out to me myself, I'm a protagonist of Monochromatic Pictures. So thank you very much, guys. I'll just end my sharing there, and I'll throw it to Q&A, I think, if Kadir is around. Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for Jeevan.